So I saved the most important video for last this week. This is writing equations in slope-intercept form. So we're going to talk about all of the different scenarios. This might be a longer video. It might be one that you want to watch next week again because you might have questions like this again next week. So we're going to talk about how to write equations in slope-intercept form. So it's possible that we're already given an equation, but we're given the equation in a different format. So hopefully we recognize this format as standard form, and we want to write it in slope-intercept form, which remember is y equals mx plus b. So essentially that means get y by itself. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my 4x plus 2y, and this is all just going to be algebra manipulating the equation to get y by itself. I'm going to start by subtracting 4x on each side, and that gives me 2y. And notice these two things are not like terms, so I can't take 8 minus 4x to get 4x or negative 4 or positive 4 or anything like that. I have to just rewrite both terms because they're not like terms, and I'm going to write the x term first, which is negative 4x, and the positive 8 second because that's the number without an x. Now I want it to just be y equals, and I have 2y equals, so I'm just going to divide every single thing by 2. That gives me y equals negative 2x plus 4. Now if I wanted to graph it, pretty easy. I would start at positive 4 on the y, go down 2 over 1, etc. This one's not about graphing, but this is what my equation would look like in slope-intercept form. So now let's talk about what happens when we have slope and the y-intercept. So this one's actually the easiest because we already know that y equals mx plus b is the form that we want, and I've just told you m and I just told you b because b is the y-intercept. So my answer, without having to do a lick of work, is y equals 1/3 x minus 6. I didn't have to do anything because they gave me the slope and the intercept, so that one's easy. So the next one and the one after this are a little bit more difficult because we have to use something called the point slope form, which is really an easy form to use. This is one that you're going to want to write down so you can reference it often. And in this one, it just helps us to take our point, which is just our first x and our first y, and our slope, which sometimes we're given and sometimes we're not, to put everything into an equation, and then we're just going to do some manipulation to make that equation into slope-intercept form. It's actually really straightforward, so let's take a look. This says take y minus y1, so take y, which is our variable, minus the y value from the point that we know, negative 1, equals, replace our slope with slope, negative 2/5. Make sure you put the parentheses, and then take x, which is a variable, which always remains x, and then minus x1, so minus the x value of my point. So everything's now in an equation, and now I just have to simplify. So on the left side, I can simplify because I have y minus negative 1, so that's y plus 1. On the right side, I'm going to distribute. Negative 2/5 x, negative 2/5 times negative 5. So again, please don't freak out when you have fractions. This is what I'm dealing with. Negative 2/5 times negative 5 over 1. The 5's are going to cancel, leave me with a negative 1 on top. So we really just have negative 2 times negative 1, which is positive 2. So this is plus 2. I'm not quite to where I want to be because remember I want y equals, so I'm going to subtract 1 from each side. That was a really bad y. Y equals negative 2/5 x, and again I'm subtracting 1, which gives me plus 1. So that is my solution. And again, that wasn't very painful. I just need to remember that point slope form to help me get started. The last one, or the last type of question that you're going to get is, I would say the most difficult, but it's really just the most work because I have to do more than one thing to solve it. So I'm still going to use the same point slope form I did before, but if you'll notice, I'm not given slope, so I have to start there. I have to find slope using that slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that would be 3 minus negative 4 over 1 minus 2. So that gives me 7 as a numerator, negative 1 as a denominator, so negative 7 is my slope. So that's the first step, got to find the slope. Second step, use point slope form, and then third step is manipulate it to put it in the right form. So let's do y minus, and then a lot of people are like, oh, well, which one do I want to use? Well, it doesn't really matter. I typically choose the one that doesn't have any negatives, if there is one that doesn't have any negatives, but you could choose the point 2, negative 4, and your solution would be the same. I'm going to choose 1, 3. So I'm going to replace y1 with the y value from 1, 3. I'm going to use my slope of negative 7. I'm going to put x minus and then use the x value from the ordered pair that I chose. Again, I could have chosen the other ordered pair. I would still get the same final solution. Next step is to start simplifying. Y minus 3 on the left, negative 7x plus 7 on the right. Add 3 to each side, which gives me negative 7x plus 10. Done and done. That 7 looks really wonky. There we go. Not much better, but you get the idea. Y equals negative 7x plus 10 is my final solution. If you want to check my work, go ahead and plug in the 2, negative 4 using the slope of negative 7 and make sure you get the exact same solution.